Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. My name is Brian. We talk about Blu-rays here. I have my good friend, Mr. Jonathan Hertzberg from Fun City Editions, joining me again today. Hello, sir.
Hey, Brian. So glad to be back. Thank you again for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk to an old friend, especially about his new releases. And today, our main topic is going to be the new Fun City Editions Fatal Femmes set. This is a 2-disc set, including 2 films, NEIGE and The Bitch. And they are both really interesting. I was going to tell you off mic, but I wanted to save it. I feel like you maybe slightly undersold the noir of this, because I know it's noir, but I felt like you were like kind of like noir adjacent, but I thought these were pretty straight, like right in the pocket noir kind of movies. Maybe you did say that. Maybe you did say that.
If they fully scratch the itch for you, then all the better.
I think especially The Bitch really felt like very much in the trappings of noir. But I think NEIGE is also there. But really a neat movie, a neat couple movies. So let's get into this. Now, when you try to describe NEIGE, I have my own thing, and I'll lay that out and see if it sounds like how you describe it. But basically, you have, well, the one thing I don't know is it's what part of town it's in, what part of it's Paris or something. That's the part I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah,
Um,
so it's in Paris,
okay.
and it's in two different districts or quarters. Called one is called the Pigalle,
Ah,
and one is called Barbe, and mostly it's in Pigalle, and it's kind of like at that time in a way kind of similar to like the Deuce, 42nd Street in New York
totally.
at the time. It's a lot of like peep shows and kind of seedy theaters playing sex films, and there's a lot of sex workers and drug traffic and such.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really interesting area. A lot of neon, and the new transfer looks great. It looks really
Yeah,
nice. But
it's
it's sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say yeah, it's beautifully shot, and it's also like the area where it was shot and the time period and everything just sort of lends itself to being very, very cinematic and just very photogenic.
Yeah, no, very much in a lot of different ways. I mean, even opens with a really neat sort of tracking shot, like through this bar,
Mhm.
back to where our main character, Anita, played by
Mhm.
Juliette Berto, she's a barmaid at this bar, and so she's going to be sort of the center of the story. And it's kind of like, you're getting to know her and the people that interact with her, people like Jocko, who's like a street preacher sort of dude who has his own little revival thing
Mhm.
going. A boxer, I think his name's Willie.
Willie, yeah,
Sort
that's
of
right.
he's into boxing and maybe karate too.
Yeah,
He's one of the
yeah,
characters.
yeah, yeah.
He's an interesting dude. I like that guy. And then there's a street level drug dealer named Bobby,
Mhm.
that sort of the Anita character is like looking after all the time
Yeah,
and is worried about. And I
yeah.
remember he has a,
She's like a surrogate mother to him.
yeah, very
Yeah.
much. And he has a quote where, she's worried about him. He's basically like, God is on my side. Like he feels like he's got everything under control. And
Yeah.
especially in the noir trappings, you always know that maybe that's not going to be the case. And I won't go too far
Right,
into that,
right,
but
right.
sort of
Not
the
a
way,
that's not a good sign.
right? Almost never. It's almost like saying I'll be right back in a slasher. It's just not a good idea.
Right.
Um, but so then the other characters that are sort of nebulously surrounding this are some narcotics cops. There's a guy whose wife is in jail, I believe, for killing a drug dealer.
Right.
That they are trying to use the guy to help connect to,
Right.
finding Bobby or somebody. There's a junkie that's always looking for Bobby. There's an old guy that works as a projectionist at a movie theater. It's a really interesting spread of characters. And I think
Yeah.
that's part of the reason I like this movie so much, was
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like her wandering around, running into these people and showing off, as you said, this area that looks like the 42nd Street of Paris. And
Right.
it's really, I don't know, really catchy. Kind of just something like that where once I settled into it and was kind of like, okay, this is what this is going to be. And then it does have sort of a motor to it. At one point, there is a trans woman performer that something happens to Bobby. I won't go into that, but she needs a fix. And then it's up to Jocko and Anita, who aren't really into the drug side of things, to try and find some drugs for this woman. And so then it gets into then the narcotics cops are circling, and so the tension starts to slowly amp up a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, I just
it really amps up.
yeah, by the end for sure, absolutely,
Yeah.
especially because you really care about her.
Yeah.
And Juliette Berto, we can talk about, is just. I mean, I'd seen Celine and Julie go boating. She is, I forget if she's Celine or Julie. I think she's Celine. I'll look it up. But she's very good in that film. Obviously, she worked with Jacques Rivette. She worked with Godard. She worked with Agnes Varda. She's really tapped into that French scene in the late '60s era, which I didn't fully get.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's I think this is a movie that's about a unique community, I think, first. And then of course there's a story to sort of as you said, like, you know, start the motor or kind of, you know, justify everything. But and it's a compelling story. But the people, like you say, the milieu that it's set in, which is so unique and hasn't really been seen so often on film, is as much or as important as anything else happening. It's just the place and the people. And if anything, I think it's a, you know, the filmmakers, I think, are trying to promote this idea of community and being part of a community, and in a situation where a member of the community needs help, other members of the community stepping up to help them. And that's what that's sort of what I take away from the movie, and the, you know, multiple times that I've watched it now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very much about that. And it's also about sort of a community that favors outsiders as opposed to, I don't know what you want, mainstream folks, whatever you want to call it. People
Right.
living
No,
on
that's
the edge.
the other thing to stress, is that it's a community that it's immigrants, it's sex workers, it's drug dealers, it's, you know, people selling all manner of things or running a movie theater. Like you said, there's the projectionist. They're all people that are sort of on the outskirts of the society, and they're definitely sort of more more outsiders, not part of the mainstream. And it looks very, it's a movie that looks very progressive now with, you know, 40 years of hindsight. It's a movie that looks like pretty ahead of its time in terms of its treatment of sex workers, of trans people, of immigrants. It looks pretty modern, you know, and that's and it was pretty cool to see it on the big screen. We showed it in Brooklyn at BAM, and we've showed it in a few other places. And I think for people that like hadn't seen it before, it was surprising in a good way that this is a movie that's over 40 years old, and that, you know, kind of had its that Juliette Berthaud and Jean-Henri Roger, her co-director, you know, had their finger on the pulse, so to speak, and were you know, they knew the area. I think they both lived there or lived near it, and wanted to do a movie that was set there. So I guess in some way it's just like documentary, like portraying this area as it existed at the time and as they knew it. But yeah, it looks I mean, it's an amazing. So it's I don't know really so much how much what the Pigalle is like now. I imagine it's changed quite a bit, just as other similar areas and other cities have. So it's it's a document of this place and time. And it's and again, like we said, it's incredibly photogenic and really dynamic. Um, and credit to them for sort of being able to make this into a story, finding some kind of story to sort of to paste onto that, because I think their main drive was that they wanted to do a film that was set in this community and with this very sort of like this very diverse populace and people that weren't really seen on film, people that weren't really represented in films at the time. And so yeah, I think it's I just think look, as the years go on, it looks more and more like a very successful, and it was their first film too. So
Wow. I didn't catch
very
that part.
impressive.
That is
Yeah.
incredibly impressive.
It looks because it really looks much more assured than that. And I think a lot of also has to do with the cinematographer,
Raul
William.
Cotard, right?
What's that?
Oh, did Raul Cotard shoot this or
No,
the other one?
Raul
The other one.
Cotard shot GARCE.
The GARCE, okay.
This film was shot by William Lubchansky, and he's a similarly accomplished cinematographer as Cotard. I mean, if you look him up, his both cinematographers have credits just on and on the IMDb with numerous auteurs of the French New Wave from the 60s through the 80s when these movies were made. So, but yeah, William Lubchansky was the one who shot Neige. And,
yeah, it looks great.
beautiful.
And clearly, both directors definitely, I would imagine, Juliette Berthoud learned a thing or two from her experiences working with, some of those great new way. Like she's in La Chinoise, for Godard. She's in Weekend. She's in 2 or 3 things I know about her. And then she's in some Jacques Rivette, films like Duel, Out One, which I still haven't seen, but it's like epic. It sounds just incredible.
Yeah.
And then Agnes Varda, Murmurs, she's in that. So I can't imagine that, she's in that probably about the time she's making this, but I can't imagine she doesn't pick up a thing or two about filmmaking and then finding her way. She just feels like an integral part that's involved in the new wave in such a way that I guess I hadn't fully put together. When you look at all the credits and then you look at her films, you look at this film, you're like, oh, wow, what an interesting lineage, to go from that new wave stuff into this, which is, like you say, it's really like very assured and did not feel like a first film to me at all. And then part of that certainly has to do with the cinematography, and her performance feels incredibly, and I know this is overused, but incredibly lived in. Like she really feels like this woman. Like you really buy her as this woman. And it feels like there's some improvisational energy happening with some of the actors, and she's really, because she is so this character, it really works for me how she acts with everybody,
Right, but it never feels like super improvised to the point where it like goes off on a unrelated track.
No,
like it's the story, it kind of stays, it does keep the plot in mind. It does sort of keep everything on track, so it never really feels like super off the cuff, or I don't know. I know what you're saying as far as having an improvisational feel, but also sort of it has a controlled feel too.
Agreed. Yeah, it doesn't. It's the beginning is where you feel that improvisation a little more, because I think really you're just kind of getting to know the characters. She's walking around. She goes to the boxing gym with Jocko, and we see Bobby doing his dealer thing at this strip club, I guess, or something. And so
Yeah.
we're just kind of getting to know everybody. And I think in that section, you can feel it just a little bit more, but you're still feeling like an actual story. Like, okay, we're getting to know these characters, and then, just this starts to take off. And yeah, I was
I
really
mean,
impressed.
I think it had to be. I think that because the it's so much happening outside and in this outside existing community, with so many characters, in addition to the main few characters, that that's where I think it's different than. That's why I think it it is not, it's not one of these uh films that are like set in a couple of interior locations where, where there's like a lot of dialogue and more of that improvisatory feel. Like this is definitely more like set out in this world. I mean, it's a specific world, but it's I guess what I'm saying is that it's still a larger story that's happening
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the showing you the community as a whole, the community at large. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's
it's really it is very impressive when you think about the fact that this is their first film as directors. It's impressive because even though it's taking place in a couple of neighborhoods, there's so much activity there. Like these are like they really are like it really does feel like you're in like the Times Square of Paris. That's how it feels like.
absolutely. No, absolutely. I agree.
I don't
Here's
know, and
the
I don't know how many of those people you see are there's so you're seeing like vendors, people running different, like there's rides and there's peep shows and there's people selling food and selling all other stuff. I don't know like how much of that are just like the people that were there or
Yeah,
the
like the guy who runs the
people
bar that she
that are,
works at. I can't
yeah,
tell if that's an actor or a real. It's probably an actor, that guy that runs the bar, but he could
yeah.
be the real guy for all I know. There's definitely a lot of real. It feels like real. It's got that great energy
It's
about
like you
it.
said, it feels very lived in. It feels
Yes, the
very
whole
much
movie.
like these are real people in the area. All and then they go when they start kind of digging around as the plot goes and trying to find the source of the drugs, and there's all sorts of very like if they're not if the people in the movie are not really those people, they seem like they're based on real people that the filmmakers, that the writers knew.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, a really special movie. I'm sure that screening was pretty cool to see with a crowd. Feels like a really good discovery kind of movie for a lot of
Yeah, I think
people.
this is it's an environmental movie. It's a movie of, I mean, that there's a story obviously, but so much of it is about the environment and and as I said before, the milieu that it takes place in. And it does lend itself to seeing it in a really good quality image. So yeah, in a theater is great, but also on the Blu-ray, it looks great. It's a new restoration from the original camera negative, and I know that that the none of the filmmakers or the cinematographer are with us anymore, but the the daughter of the co-director, Jean-Henri Roget, she was involved, Jane Roget, in the restoration, and the daughter of William Lubchansky, I think the cinematographer, was also involved in the restoration. So
Very cool. Yeah, it looks great. Looks great. And I wanted to mention too, Eddie Constantine shows up for like
that's right.
2 minutes, like just
Yeah,
another little connection to the French New Wave. I just love,
right. It was the
it's
star of Alphaville,
yes. Lemmy Caution himself. Very cool to see him. I was just like,
An American in in France.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's so funny to see him show up. I was like, is that freaking Eddie Constantine? Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but really a nice discovery. It looks like it's been logged like at this time less than 600 times on Letterboxd, which isn't a lot, you know. So a lot of people haven't this, and that's obviously not a metric that means necessarily a lot, but
No.
but there's a lot of people using Letterboxd, and I think that indicates there's a lot of people that still needs to see this movie. And so that's part of why I wanted to talk about it and
Yes.
bring it up on the show.
Yes, we need more people to see it. We need more people to see it via the Fun City Editions Blu-ray
Yes, absolutely.
specifically.
Yes, it's a great disc. It's got a good commentary from Sam Deegan. She actually she does commentaries on both, which is an excellent choice,
Yeah.
by the way, to have her do both movies. And she's always great. Her commentary is great. Let's talk about La Garce, aka the bitch. This is the Isabelle Huppert movie. This is from so NEIGE is from 1981 and La Garce is from 1984.
Correct. Yeah.
And this one, like I said, this one feels even more like I still feel like they're both Fatal Femmes is a great title for the set. I love that you did that, and I do think like neo noir fans, I need to check this stuff out. Yes, the films are both in French. You're gonna have to read subtitles, but it is well worth the investment of time and money to get this set. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, just to stress that Isabelle Huppert stars in La Garce, and it was directed by Christine Pascal, who
very
was
nice.
Also an actress, a contemporary of Isabelle Huppert and a contemporary of Juliette Berthoud. So both of these films are French crime films, noirs to varying degrees.
Sure.
Directed or co-directed by women.
Yeah.
By actresses turned filmmakers.
Very cool.
This is all sort of the raison d'etre for this set.
Yeah, and I love that you even have pictures of both Juliette Berthoud and Christine Pascal sort of directing on the back of the slipcase.
Yeah,
so
and it just so happens I felt like the slipcover format that we've kind of gone with, it kind of afforded us the opportunity to through the extra real estate that you get on the back of the slipcover. It gave us the opportunity to pay more tribute to the filmmakers themselves, and I thought, and there's all these great production stills of Juliette Berthoud and Christine Pascal directing these films, so that's where we took those from.
That's awesome.
They are from pre-existing images of Juliette Berthoud and Christine Pascal on the sets of NEIGE and La Garce.
And I love that Juliette Berthoud is like in costume. Like she has this.
Because she's acting and directing at the same time. So
yeah, she's got a great costume. She often wears a fur coat.
She's very stylish.
Really stylish. Yeah, that's all part of the character. All part of what makes it feel so real. And
it's also pretty wintry. It's kind of like Christmas time. So, the coat. It's cold out.
Yeah, exactly. No, you can tell. Okay, so La Garce. I think people are obviously very aware of Isabelle Huppert. I feel like she's pretty well known. And she's obviously a big driving force in this film. But this one, like I said, feels even more noir in that it is about a cop who is played by Richard Berry, who's an actor I don't know, but I did like in this. He basically witnesses at the beginning of the film, he witnesses sort of the end of an altercation in a car in front of him, where Isabelle Huppert's character is thrown out of the car, and she waves him down, and she gets in the car with him, and they have some kind of weird connection, and then he assaults her. He rapes her, although she does seem to turn it into something a little more. Yeah, definitely not consensual by any means, but
it becomes more. It certainly
seems
like it becomes more, but
yeah, like she's not fully.
This is not an easy film.
Exactly.
It's not an easy film. It's not. The best way I could put it, I was thinking about it before.
Yeah,
is La Garce has the trappings of a more traditional noir crime film. it feels very much more like a classical Hollywood noir with this jazzy score by Philippe Sard, and it's really and it's beautifully shot
Raul
by
Qatar,
Sard.
yeah, who
Qatar,
was a big cinematographer for Godard. He shot Breathless and, you know,
right.
big new wave guy. So you can, both films look great, which is, you
Both
know, one.
films have cinematographers with with resumes that stand up to anybody. So it has all these trappings of a classical Hollywood movie, but then it's French and it's 1984. So, and it's made in an era that's like post erotic thriller, which I think Sam Deegan talks about a little bit on the commentary.
Yeah.
And so, and Christine Pascal, the director, you know, is certainly not, I don't think she's trying to do something that's going to be easy for the audience to kind of digest or understand. So it's enigmatic.
Yeah.
This
That's
has
well put.
traditional trappings, but is also not really easy to get a handle on.
Yeah.
It's not.
Especially
It's not.
until
Your
you're,
mileage is going to vary.
but like once I got into it and once you get to, what I'm going to give is just basically broad strokes.
Mhm.
So the idea is this incident happens. He takes her home. And then the next day she reports him and
Yeah.
he is arrested and thrown in jail for 6 years for the rape.
Yeah.
And he gets out of jail and he's obviously disgraced from the police force, but one of his buddies, an ex-cop, runs now a detective agency. And he's
Right.
like, dude, I'll bring,
He's a private detective now.
exactly. He's like, I'll bring you on to my agency. You can be a detective for me. And he's like, all right. At first he's like, no. And then he decides, then like, you know, some time
So
passes,
this is all like a classic noir setup.
right?
You're an ex-cop. Oh, now you're going to be a PI and you're
Yep.
going to go, you know, work divorce cases, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. He's working to,
That's basically what he's doing.
yeah, exactly. And then he gets sucked into a case wherein Isabelle Huppert's character pops up again.
Yes.
And I really want people to watch it, so I'm not going to go too much further into what's involved in that, but that becomes the sort of like, he is fascinated by like what he wants to, he has never really gotten to talk to her because again, the actual assault is complicated if you watch the film, and so he really wants to talk to her about like what happened and why this went down the way it did. He understands to a degree, but he's never forgotten her for on obvious reasons. He's never forgotten her, and she's never forgotten him. There's even a scene of her returning to the space where the incident happened, and it's clear that it was a big deal to her too. But
go ahead.
Sorry, fire away.
No, I was going to say there's a Hitchcockian feel to it in that she's also playing like she's different identities. Her character has takes on different identities and different names.
Yep.
And
and finding out why is the interesting part, and then things get
it's
more
not
complicated.
Clear how he gets involved, why this case is, why he's on this case, or why it's been presented to him, and you know. Obviously, there's a lot of layers of the onion to unlayer.
Yeah, and there's another character that's fascinating, called Max, played by Vittorio Mezzogiorno. I can't say his last name.
I think it's like Mezzogiorno.
There we go. That sounds great. He is in, among other things, Moon in the Gutter, which I think you're a fan of.
He's an Italian actor, but acting in French films also. Yeah, and acting in French in this film.
A guy I recognize.
One of the things that's very interesting about this movie, in addition to both of these movies being Parisian, urban, crime films in the most general sense, which are directed or co-directed by women and co-written or written by women, is that both of these films also take place in very distinct districts in Paris, like we talked about how Neige takes place in the Pigalle and in Barbe. This film takes place in a section called the Sentier quarter, which was like the garment district of Paris. So
that's big part of the plot too. The garment, the fashion stuff is part of it.
Because Isabelle Huppert's character has a fashion boutique, and so the part of the plot centers around whether her character has been stealing fashions from somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Sentier is a real place. The Sentier quarter, Sentier district, like the Pigalle is a real place, and this is like the fashion or the garment district, like we have in New York. We have a garment district, and in similar to New York's garment district, at least in the most classic sense, it's a heavily Jewish area. So you get this other. That's another interesting. I find a really interesting part of this movie is that a lot of the characters, including Isabelle Huppert's character, including Max's character, are Jewish, even if some of it's not totally totally explained or totally laid out that way. But you get the sense that this is a sort of this community is kind of like insulated and insular, and the cop, our main character, is kind of supposed in some ways you get the sense that he's kind of he's an outsider to it, and that's another interesting part of the plot too. I find that interesting, seeing someone come from the outside having to infiltrate or become familiar with a sort of a more closed off insular community to solve a mystery of some
well, and I do like the connect. I think it's a nice pairing of the two films. Just having
I'm glad you think so.
No, I do. I mean, not only the noir trappings, but the community aspect that you're talking about is definitely part of it, and the sort of outsider aspect. I mean, I think it's a really neat set, and I think
thank you. I mean, and that's the other thing, is that in both cases, in both of the communities that you see in these films, the people that are in them they're outsiders to a degree, and there are immigrant. There in GARCE, you also see other immigrant characters, Arab immigrants in both films.
Yeah, there's a great side character I forgot to mention. That's like this guy that was the PI, the ex-cop turned PI's I guess cellmate in prison.
Yeah.
He's a really great supporting character, and he is.
And they have I think they have a Star of David on him so you know that.
Yeah, I did catch that.
And also Isabelle Huppert's character, I think, she wears a chai.
I think you're right.
But she's Jewish as well.
Yeah, and that does come up very explicitly at a certain point in the film, and a really key scene that I won't talk about. But I really think it's a neat double bill. Two films. GARCE is even less logged on Letterboxd, so even less people have seen that.
It's true. It's true.
So this is I mean, I know that's what you and I talk offline often about, the stuff that you're working on and what you're going to bring out. And I know that part of your idea is like bringing out things that, sometimes people don't know as much about. I mean, obviously there's a business side to things. You got to have a certain amount of marketability. There's all kinds of factors. And it's, to be honest, not to go too deep into it, but I've been fascinated by just hearing about your process running the label as you have for the last, years now. But this is a really interesting one because this is a harder sell, I think, to some people. And that's, again, why I wanted to talk about it, because I really do think these are really both very interesting movies, and that I think, Fun City Edition fans should check out. You know what I mean? Like movies that I think that they might initially go, I don't know, French movies, I'm not sure. Guys, I'm just telling you, these are really fascinating, really cool neo-noir type movies that I think you're going to dig. And that's why I wanted to talk about them.
Well, I appreciate all that. And the other thing to add to that is just that they are like, the other thing, you'll see that a lot of our films are set in different urban locations, not just New York. Obviously, Fun City is named for New York, but we have films set in Los Angeles and in New York and Chicago and Montreal and Paris and the common strand of course is that a lot of these films are all there are a lot of them are from a similar era. They're from the 60s or the 70s or the early 80s, and I think all of those cities and more were experiencing similar change as New York was, that in that Fun City era. A lot of sort of changing and changeover in populace. There was white flight, and there were immigrants coming in, and new and you know, just people coming out and different people coming in, and also resources, a lot of loss of resources and such, and that's how you end up having like New York being, you know, bankrupt literally in the mid 70s, and these movies, these Parisian movies, are in the same time period, so a lot of the same stuff. There's parallels, I think,
I agree.
with what was happening in these films, or in these cities, or in London or New York at the same time.
Well, I was just thinking,
and I call them all, I sort of call them all like Fun City, like I call these like Fun City Paris movies, because at the same time period.
Yeah.
And you can make connections between like we talked about, like the red light district or the garment district, you know, you know, there are the obviously famous iterations of those neighborhoods in New York, but they also exist in Paris, and they exist in London, and so on.
Yeah. No, I was thinking NEIGE especially lines up really well with something like Born to Win. I mean, I just think because you're dealing with drug addicts in that case, and that's a little bit that sort of, you know, milieu in NEIGE.
Right.
You know, I really think those are interesting. Obviously, they're almost a decade apart. I want to say even more, right around a decade apart.
They're right about it. They're exactly a decade apart.
Yeah, 71 and
81. Yeah.
But that said, I feel like, you know, characters like the characters in Born to Win could exist in NEIGE. And the reverse, you know, I really, despite the fact that they're on two different continents, I do think it's an interesting connection that they have, you know, in terms of that.
They certainly, you know, Born to Win certainly could have been something that Juliette Berthaud or Jean-Henri Roger were familiar with. It could have been a film that informed their film.
Sure, very much fringe characters again, drug addicts, and a whole bunch of, you know, outsiders again.
But also there's like they both have a, like, treat these people with a humanity, and there's a sense of humor, and also even the way the cops are portrayed in both films. It's a good point you bring up.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the cops. That is a big parallel too. The cops, De Niro, and it's
certainly neither film is very sympathetic or to the police.
No,
that's for sure.
Definitely not.
You can't look at either of these films and accuse them of advancing any kind of like law enforcement agenda. Right?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I like that. But
I think that's one of the ways that NEIGE also really stands out, is that it's not you know, in a way that makes it look very forward looking and actually kind of, you know, I guess revolutionary in a way, especially compared to Hollywood films. That it doesn't judge the addicts. It doesn't ever propose to rehabilitate people. It never says that the answer is to try to like rehab the people. You know, the goal really is just, let's just get this person needs, that's what this person needs to live. They need these drugs, and we're going to try to get that to them. And that's pretty, still, I think, you know, a fairly daring kind of stance to take.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, really neat set, and hats off to you for putting these two together as one release, Fatal Femmes. You can check it out. Go to funcityeditions.com to check out where you can order this direct.
You can certainly order it direct from us. I mean, it's available places, but we're happy.
If you'd like Jonathan to ship it to you, you can order direct from Fun City.
It's kind of dark back here, but the shipping machinery, everything is
right back there. Very nice. I like seeing behind the curtain. So that's great. So that's one thing we wanted to talk about, the main thing, but we talked about TR Baskin last time. That's
Did
coming
we? I don't
soon.
remember.
Yeah, we did. We actually did talk about that as sort of the next thing that's coming.
So TR
And
Baskin is Fun City, Chicago.
Fun City, Chicago. That's right. That's right. We did mention that on the last one, but I did want to talk about the one you've announced most recently, which is the Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz,
Yes.
Ted Kotcheff's film from 1974,
Right.
which is a movie that I think, despite starring Richard Dreyfuss, is a movie that I don't think a lot of people know about. Again, not a ton of logs on Letterboxd. Again, this is a minor a sort of metric, but
Yeah.
I'm very excited for this release personally. Do you want to talk about like what this is? It's a
Sure.
Paramount movie, correct?
Yeah, in the US it's a Paramount movie.
Ah,
I don't think it was released. It was released by other companies and it's a Canadian production.
gotcha.
It's released by other companies outside of the US. And it's based on a very formative, influential novel of the same title by Mordecai Richler, a Canadian writer, Jewish Canadian writer, and the movie takes place again similar to these other movies in a very specific milieu, which is in this case in Montreal, in the Jewish community in Montreal. And Richard Dreyfuss is the title character of Duddy Kravitz, and it's probably not logged that often. I think just because it's kind of been harder to see, at least in this country. I think it's been
Was there even a DVD? I know there's a VHS because I have the VHS somewhere in my garage.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever. I don't think in this country, in the United States, I don't think there's been an official release after an official release anyway, on disc, on DVD.
That's cool. I just love that you're doing something with Ted Kotcheff because I think he's a fascinating director. This is a guy who did Rambo First Blood. That's probably his most, well, Weekend at Bernie's maybe. Wake and Fright, North Dallas 40. Truly one of the great films he ever did. But also like Split Image and Switching Channels, and just a director I personally am a big fan of, but I don't think
Who's Killing the Great Chefs of Europe.
I like that movie too. I remember actually ordering that movie from Columbia House. I used that as one of my, because I was a fan of Ted Kotcheff. I was like, oh, I gotta see this, George Segal movie that I mean, he also did Fun with Chick and Jane, but George Segal and Jacqueline Bisset and Robert Morley movie that I like it, but it's been a minute since I've seen it, so I need to rewatch it. Regardless, a really interesting director, and this is a movie that I mentioned Split Image, and I know that you're a fan of Split Image too. That's one of the great, along with Ticket to Heaven, which is better, and a movie that I always associate with you. And Elric's a huge fan of Ticket to Heaven now, by the way. I mean, we've talked about it on the show on Pure Cinema. Anyway,
Ticket to Heaven, starring our good friend Nick Mancuso.
Also
of Heartbreakers.
Thank you very much. Very nice connection to another Fun City Editions, and yeah, it's a great movie.
Nick and I talked about Ticket to Heaven.
Did you? Yeah, that's great. I've loved. Well, I know that that's complicated, but Split Image and Ticket to Heaven, two of the great cult movies, and not cult in the sense of
anti-cult movies.
Anti-cult movies, yes. People deprogramming, kind of getting people out of cults movies. Right. They're two of the best I think that have been done. Anyway, that's Ted Kotcheff, but Apprenticeship, the plot synopsis on Letterboxd is just that the younger son of a working class Jewish family in Montreal, Duddy Kravitz, yearns to make a name for himself in society. This film chronicles his short and dubious rise to power, as well as his changing relationship with his family and friends. Along the way, the film explores the themes of anti-Semitism and the responsibilities which come with adulthood. That's a really broad synopsis. So
that's a lot. There's a lot going on there.
Exactly. I mean, it's exciting because this is a movie that comes out. This is from 1974.
Yeah.
He does Jaws the next year, and blows up. And so I think this is one of those cases where
this is a film that helped him get the part in Jaws.
Oh, very nice. Spielberg was a fan, I would imagine, of this. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was kind of like this was a calling card
Oh,
because
very nice.
Richard Dreyfuss had been in other films, but this was really his first. I want to say I think it was his first starring role in a film.
Yeah,
And
when did he do Good Boy Girl? Is after all that stuff, I'm
Goodbye
guessing.
Girl was a couple of years after Jaws,
Yeah,
even. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. So
Right.
yeah, this is a big one, and it's a big. It's I got to be honest. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I don't really remember it very well, so I'm kind of waiting with bated breath to watch it on the Fun City Blu-ray when it comes out again. But I
Well,
do remember it being a great showcase for him. Just
yeah,
allowing him to
he's a
just go.
hustler. Look, he's a hustler throughout the movie. Like basically, we see him through a variety of schemes and machinations, basically that he goes through to try to make a buck. It's to his credit, to the film's credit, it's a warts and all character study, and to again, to Richard Dreyfuss's credit, especially because this was very early in his career. But again, I think it also speaks to the time that it was made in the 70s. I don't think there's a lot of concern on his part about being appealing to all of the audience all of the time. Like, this character does a lot of shitty things. His character does a lot of lying and scheming and thieving and a lot of stuff that, frankly, kind of uh I would say you would say falls into Jewish stereotypes. I mean, that's part of what the movie is doing. I think that's intentional, and so it's some tricky ground to navigate, because people are sensitive. This is actually true of a number of films that we have either released or coming soon. I won't say what they all are, the coming soon ones. But this is a movie that I would imagine probably at the time probably evoked some, probably upset some parts of, say, the Jewish audience, the Jewish community, because it shows this character he's very three-dimensional. He's messy. He's not a particularly likable guy a lot of the time, because as his uncle, played by Joseph Wiseman, best known as Dr. No, said, you're a hustler. Like, you're like the kind of guy I can't stand. Like, basically, like, it's about his own nephew, Duddy Kravitz.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, thankfully,
it's not an easy film. Like, I think it's a movie that it's good to know that going in, that there's a lot of funny stuff, but it's also sad. It's that funny. There's a lot of cringy. We call now cringe comedy. This movie has a lot of that in it. I think it's probably kind of like a early example of that. A lot of stuff that's kind of like funny and sad and painful at the same time. And Duddy is at the center of all of it. And
yeah.
And Richard Dreyfuss is like, you see, like, all of the stuff that he becomes famous for in terms of just his physicality, the way he talks, the way he sounds, everything is there in this role, like right there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Everything. I think Richard Dreyfuss, when you think of Richard Dreyfuss, what he's known for, just in terms of like I said, just like his mannerisms, everything is there in his performance as Duddy Kravitz. Really great performance.
Yeah.
So,
No, like I do remember that about it. I remember being a great showcase for what he does, a great showcase for his charisma, which comes through even in a complex character like this, like a
yeah,
likability that he has. Yeah, like I said, I'm really excited to watch this when the Blu-ray comes out. I noticed the supporting cast includes some great names like Jack Warden, Randy Quaid, Denholm
yeah,
Elliott.
yeah. It's a great cast. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jack Warden plays his father, and yeah, very young Randy Quaid.
nice.
Movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is almost like Last Detail time
You'll,
Randy Quaid, just like
yeah,
1 year removed from
right.
that, actually.
Right around the same time. You
Yeah,
also notice some actors that you'll recognize probably from some early David Cronenberg films.
nice. Oh, that's
and
right. Okay.
yeah, like Joe Silver is one of them.
Oh, cool.
Um, uh, Alan
Cool.
Mijakovsky might be
Oh, cool.
his
Oh, cool.
name.
Yeah.
From Shivers.
Oh, that's cool. I
Uh,
love seeing those sort of.
Joe Silver, who was in Rabid.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. So the really
you
early
gotta
Cronenberg stuff.
yeah, you got to look up on the IMDb some great American actors and also some great Canadian actors. Plus, it's
That's
a
cool. That's cool
Canadian
because it's usually one
Canadian
or
film.
the other. It's usually one or the other. Usually you're getting, if it's a Canadian film, you might get, some of those Canadian actors, but you won't get a Jack Warden, Randy Quaid, and Denholm Elliott in the mix
Hmm,
too. So I think that's a pretty unique thing about this film just from the
right.
outset. But yeah, like I said, I can't wait for this one. Very excited about it, and obviously also very excited for anything and everything you're announcing in the near future. We'll keep an eye on your socials for those things. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for hanging out again, talking movies with me. I always appreciate it.
I appreciate again, like I say, I always appreciate the forum, man. And you reach a lot of people. So
We
we
try, man. We try, but
we need every little bit we could get.
yeah, absolutely. It's been a great thing to watch Fun City from its very beginnings to where you are now and beyond. I enjoy it, more than I can say. Just
Thank you.
seeing all that stuff and just seeing what and knowing some of the things that are coming that I'm really, really excited to talk to you about when
Yeah.
they get announced and when they get released. It's gonna be a blast. And
There's a
I've
lot more. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of cool stuff. So yeah, keep sticking with us. We
definitely,
got a lot of
definitely
good stuff in the pipeline
keep
for
an
sure.
eye on all the Fun Media or Fun City editions socials, Twitter or X or whatever, and Instagram I think is my Instagram is definitely my preferred
Yeah,
place, but
we're on all those.
Fun
We're even
City's
on the
also
new
on
one, thanks
Blue
to you
Sky.
and
Yes.
Blue
Yes,
Sky.
like I got you on Blue Sky, which I think
We're
is
on
going to
Blue Sky
be
too.
going to be a thing at some point. It's going to take off a little more when it becomes public. But that said, always a pleasure to talk to you, sir. Thank you again so much. Everybody definitely check out Fatal Femmes, which is available now.
Yes, Fatal
And
Farms is shipping now,
yeah, check this one out. Definitely worth your time.
and we're
Definitely
still shipping out Primetime Panic 2 as well.
Primetime Panic 2, which we talked about in our last interview. Very much a worthwhile set. So you've got two really nice banger sets in a row from Fun City that I just want to, shout out and make sure people know about and check them out. So thank you again, sir. And I know we will speak very, very soon.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Brian.
Always a pleasure. All right, everybody, thank you so much. And we will talk again soon about some more Blu-rays. Bye-bye.